Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On NHL. It is the Thursday edition. I am Chris Maselli with Locked On Avalanche. With me, as always, Mr. Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. If it's Thursday, it's power rankings, so we will definitely get to that. The whole helmet and goalie helmet issue seems to be going all over the place right now across the landscape of the league. So we'll kind of throw our 2 cents into that. And Denker did something. He just told me about it. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of you. Here comes another episode of Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of Locked On NHL. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. Like I stated in the beginning, we'll get to our power rankings in a minute, but it seems to be like the big talk right now, and I don't know if it's warranted or not, but it seems to be like the goalie masks. And when goalie masks come off, should play stop right away, or you have the whole rule with it being an imminent scoring chance, let's play continue. And the reason for this is, I'm sure a lot of people by now have seen the play. If you haven't, go check it out, between the Jets and the Stars, and Connor Hellebuck's helmet comes off because I believe it was Jamie Benn kind of ran into him, where his helmet comes off and Hellebuck goes down to the ice. He covers his head up. Play continues for a few seconds, and they end up scoring. And it was, I think there was like 13 seconds left in the game. They were down by 1. They had the goalie pulled. It was a big deal. They tied the game, goes to overtime, where the Jets eventually win. So they get the extra point in the win. But the big question is, should this be looked at? Is this something that needs to be looked at in more detail than the rule already states? Because some people don't like the imminent scoring chance, because that part of it is not really kind of fleshed out all that much. That's all it says. So the question is, like, what's an imminent scoring chance? I mean, I would argue if a team has possession, there's an imminent scoring chance. Like, they could be cycling the puck around for 30 seconds. That's technically an imminent scoring chance. Or is it more of a immediate scoring chance? Maybe should be the wording. Like, where do you stand on this, man? Do you feel like if a goalie helmet comes off, all bets are off? Play's got to stop. Safety is more important than anything.
Well, I don't even think it's just the goalie mask. I think it's net comes off its bearings, anything in that realm. I spoke to you. I told you before the recording when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and I said the Lightning. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but the Lightning.
Yeah, you are. You totally are right now. But yeah, go ahead.
The Lightning got a call again. Well, I forgot who they're playing. I think it was maybe the Maple Leafs. But anyway, goal net came off its hinges. Play was ruled a goal because it was imminent scoring chance, which I think is stupid, because if Vasilevsky didn't see the net come off its bearings, maybe he actually would have tried to make the save. But I just think that if you're so pro, because isn't the rule, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, that if a skater loses their helmet, they're supposed to either put it on right away or come off the ice?
Yeah.
So in a way, the play is ending for them. So shouldn't we have the same standards, if not more, higher standards for the goaltenders? Just because now that we're pushing through this whole player protective initiative and all of that. I mean, yeah, a good thing nobody got hurt, and I hate playing the if game, but what if that shot hit Hellebuck in the head or in the face?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, this is, we don't want to get to that point. And he was covering himself up. He was kind of laying kind of with the there's my dog. She doesn't like it. She was kind of like laying, he was kind of laying like half in the crease, half out, covering his head. I don't know if he was covering his head because he was injured, because he kind of took a weird hit by Jamie Benn, or if he was just covering his head for flat out protection. I would have done that, because you're on the ground, and if you try to get back up,
Yeah.
You don't know where the puck is. Someone might be firing that puck on net, and just by sheer coincidence of where you are and getting up, and that puck coming right at you, you get nailed in the head. Someone could literally die out there
Yeah.
for this. So, I was listening to Jeff Merrick, and he had a really good way to kind of like look at this. And he says, whenever something like this happens, I always ask myself, what if that won a Stanley Cup? Like, what if that was the play that won a Stanley Cup? Would we be so up in arms about it, or would we say like, hey, that's the rules, or would we not be happy with the rule? And I think if a Stanley Cup won that way, people wouldn't like it. People would not like it. I don't know. I'm more of the safety of the players, and if a goalie's helmet comes off, and a lot of people are getting into the whole thing of like, well, then goalies are just going to start ripping their helmets off. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just not. You're going to get some idiots that do that, and then they will get rightfully dragged through the mud in the media and on social media. Like, I don't think it's going to be this like epidemic of goalies just when it's a 2-on-1, just taking their helmets off like Vader and being like, yeah, hey, you can't do it. But there are rules already in place for that it's a penalty. You can't do that. So why do we have all these equipment rules? Like if the net comes off its moorings, we stop play. Usually, if the helmet comes off, they have to get out or put it on right away. If the stick breaks, you have to put that stick down immediately. Like, why do we have those rules in play? But when the most vulnerable position on the ice in a goalie, his helmet comes off, it's up to the ref's discretion. If it's, the puck's still eminently going to be scored, we'll let it continue. I think it's a little ridiculous, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I want to ask the people who are yelling, well, it's the rule. It's the rule. How would you feel if that was your goaltender? And
They wouldn't like it at all.
And a game was decided that way because of that exact play.
Yep.
I think you would be very upset.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, well, they seem to, a lot of the shows I listen to and watch, that just because this is happening and the stuff with dislodging the goal and intentionally, everybody's like honing in on these two things right now. So maybe they get addressed in some more capacity in the off season, and I think they should. I just don't feel like if you change the rule, I just don't feel like there's going to be enough goalies that take advantage of it. Will there be? As long as Jordan Binnington's in the league, of course there will be. But for the most part, I think players are going to honor like the integrity of the sport for for the majority of them will. And for the ones that don't, they'll get rightfully dragged.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. I'm very set on, if the helmet comes off, if the goal comes off, play is dead. I don't care.
Yeah.
If the guy's on a breakaway. I mean, then again, obviously the only way that could happen is if the goalie is doing something that he's not supposed to be doing. But
Right. Well, like you said, if it was your goalie who this happened to, where would you stand?
Yeah,
What about this?
exactly.
What if someone gets nailed in the head with this and dies from this? Are we going to sit back and be like, hey, he died because the rules? No.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've also I get that, and but I've also seen situations where goaltenders have gotten right up after their goalie their mask has fallen off, and they're ready to go, like just looking for the puck.
You're right.
So, maybe that's some of the guys that are from the old, still kind of from that old school upbringing.
That's from the
where-
Jason Mask era. Yeah, you guys are
Yeah.
nuts. All right, let us hear from Bet Online, and then we will jump into our power rankings. So betonline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to hockey and even the World Cup. How into this World Cup are you? Fans of Locked On Avalanche know that I'm just not a soccer guy. Are you big into this or no?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a casual soccer fan.
Mhm.
already.
Mhm.
It's weird. I haven't really been big on it this year just because of all the political stuff going on with it. But hey, Team USA is in the knockout stage,
Yeah. Can you name 3
and
players?
on Team USA,
Yeah.
I can name 3 syllables of the name of a player. Uh, Christian Pulisic,
Yep.
Captain America. Let's go.
Captain
That's all
America
you need
plays
to
for
know.
Team USA. Holy crap.
Yes.
Anyway, if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at Bet Online as well. And we're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to learn more. That's betonline.net. It's where the game starts. All right, so we have our power rankings, and it seems like we are sticking with the division rankings. It doesn't seem like we're any longer doing the 1 through 32, just going division by division. So we'll do that. And if you are on YouTube, we're going to get it loaded up here in a second. Let me just move some stuff around so you can get a better visual of it, and not
Yeah,
just
that's perfect.
me.
I was going to say that's perfect.
This just does not want to work for me. There we go. All right. So I guess we'll start on the left-hand side of the screen with the Atlantic. No surprise, the Buffalo, yeah, the Buffalo Sabres are towards the bottom. The Boston Bruins are number 1, Toronto number 2, Lightning number 3, Red Wings number 4, Panthers number 5, Canadians 6, Sabres 7, the Senators at 8, and I continue to be disappointed by the Ottawa Senators. That was like my dark horse going into the season of a
Yeah.
team that could really make a run for it. I mean, we're just getting into December. There's a long way to go, but God, it's just like the more things change, the more they stay the same with Ottawa. But any issues with the Atlantic for you?
No, I'm not totally convinced on Montreal just yet, but when I voted Chris, because we
Oh,
you didn't
thank
bring
you
this
for bringing
up.
that up. I did not, and that's my fault. I meant to tell you, check your mailbox because you're going to be getting. I sent you an "I voted" sticker that you can wear around the office because Denker voted on the. But I love your reasoning why you voted.
I was bored. Well, it's also this it's the season for giving, Chris, and I
Oh, is
decided
that it?
to give something back to the listeners and viewers other than
Yeah.
just my opinion.
What
So,
about the listeners of the Metropolitan Central and Pacific? Did they
nah, they're
get?
okay. They're okay. They
Yeah,
I've given all I could. So
I will take it. one out of 4 ain't
maybe
bad,
how
but
about we'll
yeah,
do going forward? I will switch it up. Instead of voting for all divisions, next week I'll vote for the Metropolitan and
okay.
then the Central and
We'll
then the
switch it
Pacific.
up.
Yeah.
I'll take what I can get. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm proud of you. So anyway, yeah, you were talking about Montreal, which I'm glad you mentioned them because they're not gonna compete for a playoff spot, but they're playing better than expected. I think people just expected them to have a repeat of last season where they were just utterly terrible, but they
Yeah.
made some pretty decent moves in the offseason and they're competitive now. They're
Yeah,
not
they're
they're
good.
not
No,
not a
I-
pushover right now.
if they're kind of in this spot, like come like January, I will start to believe in them. But the team that really and it's funny because I think I had everything like this except for Detroit in front of Tampa Bay. Um, in this, and oh,
You
actually, no, I had Buffalo ahead of Montreal too. That's what it was.
really?
Yeah. So yeah, I think Montreal is. I think they're like you said, they're starting to come on. They've been playing well, but they're not by any means a playoff team. Um,
No.
I really like Buffalo. They have really impressed me this year. You know,
I
they're a
mean,
team they're gonna make little noise down the stretch. Possibly depending on what the East does, maybe
mhm,
be on the fence of being on the fence of a wild card spot.
yeah.
But
Here's the thing with Buffalo.
they are a tough team, man.
Well,
They
they're
are.
they're an exciting team. They're more entertaining. But the and we actually Kyle and I talked about this on our show yesterday. They they got to learn how to win.
Yeah.
And the game that they just had against your guys is a prime example. Like they go up by 2 that late in the game, you have to shut the door
Yeah.
and they're not. So
Yeah.
that's what you're going to get from Buffalo. I think for the duration of the season. Like they started out pretty good, but they had a 7-game losing streak recently. But they're scoring, like, they're up towards the top in goals per game, I believe. So offensively, they're kind of hitting their stride. Defensively, it's a problem, and you have guys like Owen Power, who he's a rookie, so you got to give him a little bit of time, but he's still playing well.
Yeah.
But that's what they need to address
I
is
mean,
shutting teams down. They're just struggling to do it right now.
yeah, and that comes with experience though. They're a young team, but they have a lot of good players, and they're so good on the break. They're so good down low in front of the net. If I was a Sabres fan, I wouldn't be worried about them going down the line, in the next couple of years. I have to say, even though you picked the Senators early on in the season, and that's not looking like a good pick thus far, how about my pick of the Detroit Red Wings? How is that looking thus far this year?
I like them.
Continue to impress me. I mean, they're a team that, they got the goaltender now. So, why not? Why not? Which it still mystifies me that St. Louis would allow themselves to do away with Billy Husso.
I liked him. I mean,
and maybe we're biased because we're huge Jordan Binnington haters too. So,
well, I was gonna say I made a crack on Binnington earlier, and I could make another one right now, but I'll spare him. One per episode is my limit. I liked Husso, and I actually was kind of hoping the Avalanche would try to find a way to bring him in when the Avalanche had a no goalie when Kemper left. But and he came at a good price. He's a solid guy. So Detroit's in this. Like Detroit is in this for the duration. They're tough. And while we're talking about Buffalo, how they need to learn how to do all these things and be on the winning side of games. Detroit's been doing that for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So they're over that, and they have guys that are now no longer, they're young, but they're past their rookie season +1, and they're on a good path right now. I think
we always talk about young, talented teams, like you just said, trying to learn how to win, trying to learn how to finish games. I equate it to, all right, you got the first shoe on in terms of having the talent. Now you need to put on the other shoe in terms of just wrapping that all together and walking into a win. And I think that Detroit has finally gotten that other shoe on. So
it's a nice metaphor, Denker. I like that.
Thank you. Just thought of it on the spot.
You did? I thought you would have been like thinking of that since you woke up in the morning. Like, how am I going to explain how Detroit's doing well? Shoes. I love it, man.
Shoes.
I like it. Let's skip over to the Metropolitan. The New Jersey Devils, number 1. The Hurricanes, number 2. Islanders, 3. Penguins at 4. Rangers at 5. Capitals, 6. Flyers, 7. And the Blue Jackets at 8. I have some issues here, man. Like,
what are the issues?
Flyers are terrible.
Yeah,
Flyers. Did they stop their losing streak? I mean, they lost 10 in a row, 11 in a row. I would put them at the bottom, and I'm not saying that's because Columbus is this great team. I just let's see. No, the Flyers did win one finally.
Yeah, they're 1-6-3 in their last 10, and they're facing my guys tonight as we record this. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I know points wise, like Columbus is pretty decent behind Philadelphia, but just, currently, I think Philadelphia is playing terrible. So I think they deserve to be at the bottom. Pittsburgh moves up. They were 7 last week, and now they move up to 4. I don't know what to make of Pittsburgh. Like, I feel like they started off the season pretty good, then they just fell off a cliff. Now they're playing a little bit better. I can't make heads or tails of that team. I don't. Do you have anything?
I think I just think they're a kind of team. I think like down the road, I mean, if they keep themselves in the wild card, I mean, we both know what's going to happen. They're going to get into the playoffs and they're going to become dangerous again. So, and while we're speaking, we didn't really talk about this, or we didn't even bring it up, but while we're talking about Pittsburgh, I mean, shout out to Chris Letang. Hopefully everything,
oh my God,
is no long-term effects from that. And such a young
Scary.
age to have that. Yeah, and scary. So, hopefully,
And someone
we would like to see him come back, but obviously, health first. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Someone said he had one
Yeah, a
earlier in
couple,
life too.
yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. Crazy. Yeah, get well. Between the Devils and the Bruins, if we were doing 1 to 32, who would be your overall number one?
Well, we haven't even spoken about the Central and Pacific yet.
Yeah, we're not.
Uh,
There's a reason for that.
I would say the Bruins. The Bruins are just so they have that veteran. They have that confidence about them, that swagger that you
Mhm.
don't really see in the Devils. They
Really? See, I don't know.
I just feel like when I see, and maybe that's just the fact that I've seen the Bruins play a whole lot more this year, given that they're in the same division as the Lightning. But
Mhm.
I just feel like when you see the Bruins out there, and I am one of those people, like how you hate on Binnington, I hate on Swayman. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who's in net on any given night for these guys. I mean, there's no drop off in play there. And
Mhm.
even if they're missing someone out of their lineup, I mean, they had one of the biggest, I think, scandals this year in the NHL. I don't think there's going to be anything bigger. Hopefully, there's not. But that did not phase this team one bit.
Mm.
Around certain teams, that might be a distraction. But this Bruins team, they just get better and better with each period.
Yeah.
And
No, it would be, you couldn't go wrong with either answer, but I just the Devils are a fun team to watch. Where, like you're saying, like the Bruins are veterans, so they're just on the same page, game in and game out, because they played with each other for 37 years. The Devils, like they played together for a handful of years too. Like they are, put all these pieces together years ago, and now they're finally starting to see the fruits of that. But they're a darn exciting team to watch.
yeah,
They're fun. They're young. They're the opposite of the Bruins. They're young and energetic, and just kind of like this freewheeling team, and everything's clicking for them right now. So
yeah,
I'm a little bit worried about their goaltending situation, but it's working for them right now. So will there be a drop off at some point? You would have to think for both of these teams. You're not going to play like this for the duration of the year, but they're playing so well right now that if they do have those like little drops, it's not going to affect them that much because they've put themselves in good positions as it is. So,
yeah, yeah. I would agree. One team though that I do want to kind of put in that conversation. Not right now. I don't think they're going to be able to put themselves in that conversation in terms of best team, but a team that I really want to put out there from the Metro before we head into the Western Conference is the Carolina Hurricanes.
mm-hmm.
Another team that kind of reminds me of how the Bruins are. And the weird thing about them is that they don't have. I mean, they have Svechnikov, but I mean, they don't really have that big superstar that everybody knows. They have a
Right.
handful of guys that could go out there and hurt you on any given night. And I think that's a lot more dangerous than having, a couple of superstars on your team, especially with some goaltending in your back pocket.
Yeah, I think they have a couple guys that maybe like I don't want to say on other teams, but like could be superstars.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
they're
I
just
think
not household names yet.
like Marnicius, I think
Exactly. He's the one of, yep.
is first line anywhere else he goes.
Yes, exactly. He's great. So, but I think it's just they need to get a little bit more notoriety, and I think in time it could happen. But you're right. Overall, they just have guys that just do their job and do it well. So, all right, let's head over to the Central. Dallas remains. There's only a couple movement teams here in the Central. Dallas remains at 1. Avalanche remain at 2. The Jets are at 3. The Wild are at 4. The Blues, at some point, you knew they were going to have to move up, and they finally do. They go from the bottom of the Central in 8, and they move up to 5. 6 and 7 remain the same in the Predators and the Coyotes. And the Blackhawks find their way at the bottom, and we kind of it was a nice story for a little while that they were playing better than expected, but you kind of figure the bottom was going to drop out at some point, and it seems to have done that for the Blackhawks. So they are now at Number 8, you kind of expect them to stay there for most of the season. And I have to full disclosure here, I purposely voted for the Avalanche at number 2 prior to their game against Winnipeg because I just didn't have a good feeling about that game, and I didn't want to vote after that game was over because Winnipeg would have probably been above, and if we were to do this right now, they would be. But we have deadlines here, man, and I just had to put my vote in before the game started. There's nothing I can do about it. So as far as this goes, the Avalanche are number 2, but I'm okay with a lot of this in this division. It's a good division. It's very top heavy. It's going to be fun seeing those teams kind of maneuver around, and Winnipeg is for real. Winnipeg is a very good team. And I think some people are just kind of sleeping on them right now just because they're not expecting them to do much. I'm telling you, like I've watched them play twice against the Avs, and just in watching the Central, they're a good team. They're a really good team. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Central.
What about I mean, I was able to see the Blues recently in Nashville, and you know, I've always had kind of a soft spot for the Predators. I always think they're a team that no matter, unless they're completely in the cellar, I think they're always a team that could rise through the ranks. But the Blues look like, you know, they've gotten it together, and they got off to a terrible start. They were one of the worst teams in the NHL, and now they're 7-3 in their last 10, which is good to see. So, you know, now we may not see the St. Louis fire sale. Who knows? And shout out to the Minnesota Wild, who you and I love to trash, for being the only team in the NHL to break even on their goal differential. So bravo.
Really?
Bravo.
The only team, really? Wow.
Only team to have given up 62 goals and have scored 62 goals. So
how do you celebrate that, or do you like, where do you go for that?
I mean,
if you're you know, a fan or the coaching staff, do you celebrate that, or do you be like, we got to do better than that?
It's oddly impressive.
I know that's surprisingly the only ones that are like that. Wow. All right. Something to watch. We'll head over to the Pacific, and you have Vegas still at number 1. The Seattle Kraken have gone up to number 2. They switched spots with the Kings, who were 2 last week. They are now 3. Oilers stay at 4. Flames stay at 5. Vancouver moves up another spot to number 6, slowly making their way back into non-mediocrity. You have the Sharks at number 7 and the Anaheim Ducks at number 8. And I think you have to look at Seattle here.
Yeah.
It's just so, like, we thought they were going to be improved, clearly, and they are. If you look at the overall standings, all 4 divisions, they are number 5 right now.
Yeah,
they are number 5 in terms of points. Where are they here? They have 31 on the season. They're 4 behind Toronto, has got 35, but they are. Is this going to last? I think because they played so poorly last year, and they were an expansion team, or people are just not wanting to give them enough credit. And like we're saying, who were we saying, like the bottom was falling out with the Blackhawks? I think people are maybe expecting something not that drastic, but a lot of people are saying like they're just overperforming right now. And when are they going to come back down to a little bit to like where we thought they were going to be? That might not happen. I don't know. Like they can score. My issues with Seattle are the same as I have with New Jersey in the goaltending. Like Grubauer is not playing well. I'm sorry. Like he's just not. Like both their goalies are not playing that well. So can they just keep outscoring teams and just have the goaltending situation be a liability? I don't know. Sometimes that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But Seattle's impressive right now.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point that maybe part of it is that this team did so poorly. They're only 29 points away from equaling last year's point total. So
wow.
That tells you how bad they were last year. And I think really what the key is, though, with this team to keep it going is, and we talk about this all the time in the NHL, is you got to take advantage of your home games, and they are 8-1-1 on the road right now, and so if they and they're 6-4-2 at home, so if you could kind of start to turn, I mean, it's not 6-4-2 is not bad by any stretch,
Right.
but it could be
Yeah.
better.
Sure.
If you could kind of trend that up a little bit, I mean, it is sustainable. And I want to pose a question towards you, Chris, as well as our listeners, as well as the people that watch this show on YouTube. And please comment below if you are a fan of any team in the Pacific Division other than Seattle and Vegas. Are you at any all bothered by the fact that the top two teams in the Pacific are the most recent expansion teams?
I mean, I think people are beyond the expansion part of Vegas. You know what I mean? Like they just got out to such a hot start, making the Stanley Cup final in their first year. I think people, as soon as that happened, people were like, okay, we're not considering you an expansion team anymore. But in terms of like what you're saying, like, yeah, that's true, man. The
Like you
last
have
two teams
teams
to come
like
into this league.
Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Los Angeles. These teams
Yeah.
have been around. They've been fostering their farm systems for years. And Vegas and Seattle,
Come in.
Vegas, like you said, come
That's
in,
true.
bam, right away. Seattle's like, we're not ready yet. Maybe next year. And next year comes, and like I said, they do a complete, right at this point in time, they do a complete 180. Who knows what's going to happen down the road,
Yeah.
but very impressive. I like that. And I saw an interview with Yanni Gord recently, and he was saying how like really the key for this team was that this year they got to know each other. Last year it was kind of just thrown together. It's like your first year at hockey camp. You don't really know anybody. You're kind
Mm-hmm.
of just going out there and winging it almost. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that this second year and this first off season for Seattle was so important. And you could see that a lot of these players, I mean, we don't know for sure. I'm sure they did, but took the time to really know each other on the ice,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it's paying dividends. So
Yeah, it's true.
yeah,
I think, from a fan standpoint, I think people are less inclined to have as much disdain for the Kraken as they do for Vegas, simply because Vegas, just the way that they operate a few years into their
yeah,
franchise's history, people that rubs people the wrong way,
yeah,
myself included. For Seattle, it was like, okay, I hate to say it this way, but you did it the right way. You sucked for the first year, and that's what an expansion team is supposed to do. And
yeah,
now that you're winning, you don't have so much hate. Good for you, Seattle. But when they keep doing this year after year, then we'll hate you. We just hated Vegas right off the bat because it's just like,
right,
hey, it's when you hire that new guy that comes into the meeting and just starts like wanting to change everything. That was
yeah,
Vegas, and people didn't like that. So,
yeah,
but hey, this is a wild division. A lot of people, again, I think both of us thought Calgary was going to be up there for the majority of the season. They're struggling right now, but this is why you play 82 games. You see how this thing, it, you know, December 1st is a lot different than April 1st.
yeah, of
So
course.
we'll see where these teams kind of settle in. But I think the Flames are just too good to be in the middle of the pack here. I want to see what Vancouver continues to do. That's going to be an interesting team. They're playing better, but they have decisions to make. Do we get rid of guys? Like, do we throw in the towel even though we're starting to play a little bit better? Do we kind of just start preparing for next year? So that's going
Yeah,
to be an interesting to.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Can you hear me? There you go.
yeah. I
Okay.
unfroze. Yeah. From what I did hear, yeah, I agree with you. I think Calgary. I think this team's not done. I think they're still kind of figuring it out.
Mhm.
Vancouver is definitely going to be an interesting team. I think we just all want to see Vancouver succeed at this point.
Hank is
And
Boudreaux. We all like Boudreaux.
yeah, it's
Let
one of the most
Brucey.
likable coaches.
You gotta
One of
love
the
him.
most. I mean, Bruce. There it is, magic in Vancouver. Who doesn't love that?
I
My thing is though, I think it would almost be sacrilegious if we're here at the end of the year talking about the Edmonton Oilers being a wild card team. I just nothing against the Kings, but when you have the best player on the planet, and I know it's not his fault, and I know it's not Leon Draisaitl's fault, it's the front office. We all know this. But when you have the best player on the team, on the planet, and your ceiling is the wild card, that's unacceptable.
Yeah,
it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of it is Nick David's fault. Don't sign for $12.5 million. Put your team up against cap.
Fair.
Hey, but go get.
Are you going to turn, Chris? Are you going to turn down
12.5 for the betterment of the team? Denker,
get at it. Stop.
Yes,
it.
I
Stop
am.
It.
Yes, I am.
Stop it.
I'll take 12. I'll take 12.
This just in: Chris Maselli's a liar.
Hey, I said I would take 12, not 12.5. I'm going to help the team. All right, everybody. That'll wrap it up for this week. So thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. Hopefully you get some enjoyment out of these power rankings. We do them every Thursday with myself and Mr. Mixtape, Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. So if you're watching on YouTube, we'll go full screen with the power rankings one more time so you can get one final look of where your team stands, happy or sad. So that's going to wrap it up for this week, everybody. Once again, thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen. And we'll see everybody next Thursday with a fresh batch of power rankings.